The sound waves rolled through the air as Elior Vesper cleared his throat, pressing his finger against the neural transmitter at his temple. The device calibrated to his vocal patterns instantly, glowing a soft blue against his copper skin. Edby, the newest member of Earth's diplomatic corps assigned to the Crystallian hegemon's entourage, Elior had expected to be translating trade agreements and military protocols, not poetry. "Again," commanded Ambassador Trellis, her silver hair pulled into a tight knot. "The Crystallian hearing system processes human speech in a range we barely understand. Your voice has peculiarities that seem compatible with their auditory perception. You must get this perfect." Elior sighed, reading the alien text once more. The words themselves were meaningless to him, a collection of symbols that the translating algorithm converted into phonetic pronunciations. His job wasn't to understand, but to vocalize in precisely the right way. "Vetra nacel imparido, costralium centur." His voice flowed with unusual resonance, a quality that made the sonogram on the wall dance with complex patterns. The ambassador's eyes widened slightly. Better. Much better. What Elior didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the Crystallian language was far more than words. It was harmonics and sub-frequencies that carried emotional context no human-designed algorithm could fully decode. And by pure biological accident, Elior's vocal range included harmonic overtones that matched Crystallian emotional markers for sincerity, wisdom, and something that had no human equivalent, something between reverence and desire. "You leave for the hegemony station tomorrow," Ambassador Trellis said, gathering her materials. "Remember, you're just the translator. Stay invisible. The negotiations for mining rights on Epsilon Hydra are too important to risk on cultural misunderstandings." That evening, as the dropship ferry carried Elior to the orbital station where the Crystallian vessel awaited, he stared out at the fading blue of Earth. All 25 years of his life had been spent with both feet planted firmly on humanity's homeworld. Now he was heading into the unknown, a minor cog in humanity's diplomatic machinery. The Crystallian ship was beautiful and terrifying, an impossibly elegant structure of gleaming silver-black material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As Elior and the small human delegation were escorted through corridors that pulsed with bioluminescence, he fought to keep his breathing steady. The Crystallians themselves moved with fluid grace that belied their imposing stature, standing nearly 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in overlapping plates that resembled polished obsidian, while forearms moved in perfect coordination. Their faces, if one could call them that, were collections of sensory organs arranged around a central speaking apparatus that emitted clicks, whistles, and deep resonant tones. When they reached the diplomatic chamber, Elior was positioned beside Ambassador Trellis, neural transmitter activated and ready to convert her words into Crystallian phonetics. But before the formal introductions could begin, the room fell into absolute silence as a new figure entered. Supreme Sovereign Vexerai of the Crystallian hegemony moved like liquid shadow, taller than the others, with plates that shifted colors subtly as they caught the light. 4 piercing eyes, so deeply purple they were almost black, locked onto the human delegation. "Begin," Ambassador Trellis whispered. Elior activated his transmitter and began to speak the formal greeting they had prepared. The moment the first syllables left his lips, all 4 of Sovereign Vexerai's eyes widened, sensory appendages extending in what the briefing materials had identified as a sign of intense attention. What Elior didn't realize was that, in the complex harmonics of his voice, he had accidentally conveyed something no human translator had ever managed before. The ancient Crystallian greeting, reserved only for those considered worthy of personal attention from royalty. And the sovereign was listening, truly, listening for the first time to a human voice. "Stop the translator," Sovereign Vexerai commanded, the translation coming through the human's earpieces with a slight delay. "Let him speak directly." Ambassador Trellis froze, her carefully prepared opening statements forgotten. This was not protocol. Translators were tools, not participants. "Sovereign," she began. "Perhaps there is some misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," Vexerai interrupted. all four eyes still fixed on Elior. The voice frequencies this one produces contain harmonics our scientists believed humans incapable of generating. I wish to hear more. Elior's heart hammered against his ribs as the Sovereign approached, towering over him. The neural transmitter at his temple pulsed with incoming data, translations and cultural context flowing directly into his brain. Tell me your designation, the Sovereign requested. Elior Vesper, assigned translator for the Earth Diplomatic. Corpse, he replied, his voice steady despite his fear. The crystallians in the chamber made a sound like wind through crystal, their version of murmuring. The Sovereign's upper appendages moved in a gesture the transmitter couldn't interpret. Speak. Again. Say anything. Elior glanced at Ambassador Trellis, who gave him a tight nod. Uncertain what to say, Elior recalled a poem his grandfather had taught him, an ancient verse about stars and infinite possibilities. As the words flowed, he noticed the crystallians, plates shifting colors vibrating slightly with what he hoped wasn't anger. When he finished, Sovereign Vexerai's voice came softer than before. In all our encounters with humans, none has spoken with the Veshtal, the truth resonance. Your voice carries harmonics that signify deep honesty in our communication. You will attend me personally during these negotiations. Ambassador Trellis stepped forward. Sovereign, while we're honored by your interest in our translator, Elior isn't authorized to negotiate on behalf of Earth. I do not want him to negotiate, Vexerai clarified. I want him to translate for me. If we are to trust these agreements, I must hear them through a voice that cannot hide deception. That evening, Elior was moved from the human quarters to a chamber adjacent to the Sovereign's own, an honor apparently reserved for treasured advisors. The room pulsed with the same bioluminescence as the corridors, adapting to his circadian rhythm. You are troubled, came a voice from the doorway. Nishari, introduced as the Sovereign's chief sensory interpreter, stood watching him with all four eyes tilted in curiosity. I'm just a translator, Elior said. Yesterday I was the most junior member of the diplomatic team. Today I'm whatever this is. Nisharia's plates rippled in what the neural transmitter identified as amusement. You are Veshtalik, voice that cannot lie. Do you know how rare that is? Even among crystallians, perhaps 1 in 10,000 possesses the harmonic range that conveys absolute truth without intent. But I'm not crystallian, Elior protested. No, Nishari agreed, which makes you infinitely more valuable. The Sovereign believes your species has been selective in your communications until now. Elior felt cold realization wash over him. You think we've been lying. Not lying, Nishari corrected, selectively harmonizing. But your voice, it carries overtones you cannot control, cannot fake. The Sovereign can hear your species' true intentions through you. As Nishari left, Elior stared at his reflection in the polished surface of the wall. He was no longer invisible. He had become something far more dangerous, a tool that both sides would fight to control. And somewhere deep in his mind, he wondered what the Sovereign heard when he spoke that made those four strange eyes watch him with such intensity. 3 days into the negotiations, Elior found himself in an impossible position. Ambassador Trellis and her team would brief him each morning, carefully instructing him on which tonal inflections to emphasize when translating their proposals, inflections that, unknown to him, were meant to conceal certain human advantages in the mining agreements. Then he would enter the grand negotiation chamber, stand beside Sovereign Vexerai's imposing form, and find himself utterly incapable of reproducing those practiced deceptions. Something in his vocal cords simply refused to generate the harmonic patterns his superiors wanted. You seem distressed, Vexerai observed during a brief recess, the massive alien's plates shifting to a deep blue that Elior had learned indicated concern. I'm caught between two loyalties, Elior admitted, surprised by his own honesty. My duty to my species and something else I don't fully understand. Vexerai made a sound like distant thunder, a crystallian sigh. Your voice cannot lie, Elior Vesper. It is not a learned skill among my people, but a biological trait. Somehow you possess it despite your human physiology. Before Elior could respond, Ambassador Trellis approached, her smile tight and professional. "Sovereign, might I borrow our translator for a moment?" In a small antechamber, Trellis didn't bother hiding her frustration. "What are you doing? The harmonic patterns we practiced are completely absent from your translations." "I'm trying," Elior insisted. "But something happens when I speak to them. It's like my voice realigns itself." Trellis's eyes narrowed. "The neural linguists warned me this might happen. The translator is adapting to crystalline communication patterns. We need to reset your device." She reached for his neural transmitter, but Elior stepped back. "That's not it. It's not the technology, it's me. Something in my actual voice." "Don't be ridiculous. You're a tool, Vesper. A sophisticated one, but still just a conversion mechanism. Get back in there and follow instructions." The words stung more than they should have. Elior returned to the chamber, his thoughts in turmoil. That evening, he was summoned to the Sovereign's private observatory, a vast dome that displayed the surrounding starfield with breathtaking clarity. Vexerai stood alone, gazing at distant nebulae. "Your kind sees beauty in this?" the Sovereign asked as Elior entered. "We do. Don't yours?" Crystallians process visual information differently. We see patterns, trajectories, mathematical possibilities. But since hearing your voice, I've been attempting to perceive as you do. The admission surprised Elior. "Why?" Vexerai turned, all four eyes focusing intensely. "Because you have revealed something missing in our understanding. Your voice contains harmonics that suggest emotional responses we thought exclusive to our species. It raises possibilities." "What? Possibilities?" "That the universe designed our species to complement each other." The Sovereign's plates rippled with colors Elior had never seen before. "Elior Vesper, I must show you something few non-crystallians have ever witnessed." With surprising gentleness, one of Vexerai's four hands extended toward Elior's face, holding what appeared to be a small crystal. "This is Veshtalar, Truth Stone. It resonates only with voices that cannot deceive." When Elior spoke, a simple hello, the crystal erupted with pulsing light that cast prismatic patterns across the observatory walls. "As I suspected," Vexerai said softly. "Your species is not what we believed. And you are something extraordinary." The realization hit Elior with sudden clarity. He wasn't just translating words, he was bridging worlds in ways neither species had imagined possible. And the look in Vexerai's four eyes suggested the Sovereign was experiencing something equally profound, something that went far beyond diplomatic protocol. "They're recalling you to Earth." Nishari's words cut through the peaceful silence of Elior's chamber, jolting him from half-sleep. "What? Why?" Elior sat up, disoriented. He'd been aboard the Crystallian vessel for nearly 2 weeks, and the negotiations were progressing better than anyone had anticipated. "Your Ambassador Trellis has requested an immediate replacement translator. She claims your neural transmitter is malfunctioning and affecting translation accuracy." Elior felt his stomach drop. It wasn't a malfunction. It was his inability to incorporate the subtle deceptions Trellis wanted. His voice simply wouldn't produce the harmonic patterns intended to give Earth an edge in the mining rights agreement. "When do I leave?" he asked, already calculating what this meant for his career. Failure in his first major assignment would likely relegate him to processing linguistic data on some remote outpost. "You don't," Nishari replied, plates shifting to an orange hue Elior hadn't seen before. "Unless you choose to, I don't understand. The Sovereign has invoked an ancient right, Keveratum, the claiming of a truth voice. Under hegemony law, no truth-bearer can be compelled to leave diplomatic service once recognized." Elior's mind raced. "That's not in any of the diplomatic protocols Earth agreed to, because your people don't believe it exists." Nishari moved closer, lowering her voice. "Elior, there is something you must understand. The Sovereign's interest in you extends beyond your translating abilities." Before Elior could ask what that meant, his communication device chimed. Ambassador Trellis was demanding his immediate presence. In the human delegation's quarters, Trellis wasted no time. "What exactly have you told the Sovereign about our negotiation?" Strategy? Nothing, Elior replied truthfully. I've only translated as instructed, or tried to. Then explain why Vexorai's representatives just informed us that the Sovereign is invoking some archaic claim on you. This is completely unacceptable. You're an Earth citizen and diplomatic corps property. The word property stung. I'm not sure what's happening either, Elior said carefully. But I think there's something about my voice that has significance to them. Your voice, Trellis repeated flatly. Vesper, they're manipulating you. This is a classic divide and conquer tactic. They've identified you as the weak link and are trying to exploit you. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps this was all an elaborate ploy. But the memory of the truth stone glowing in response to his voice suggested something more profound was at work. I need to understand what's happening before I leave, he said finally. Trellis's expression hardened. That's not your decision to make. Pack your things. The transport leaves in 3 hours. But when Elior returned to his quarters, he found Sovereign Vexorai waiting, an unprecedented breach of diplomatic protocol that left him speechless. You are troubled, the Sovereign stated. Not a question, but an observation. I'm being recalled. To Earth? Do you wish to go? The question caught Elior off guard. Did he? 2 weeks ago, he would have said yes without hesitation. Now he wasn't certain. Something had awakened in him here, a sense of purpose and connection he hadn't experienced before. I don't know, he admitted. What is Keviratum really? Nisharie mentioned it, but I don't understand. Vexorai's plates shifted to a deep violet hue. In ancient times, when Crystallians first encountered other sentient species, we discovered rare individuals whose vocal harmonics resonated with our deepest communication patterns. These beings became bridges between worlds, treasured for their ability to speak truths that transcended language. And you think I'm one of these bridges? I know you are. When you speak, Elior Vesper, I hear more than words. I hear intention, emotion, truth, qualities that have been absent in our communications with humans until now. The Sovereign moved closer, towering over him yet somehow not threatening. The choice is yours. Return to Earth where your gift will likely be suppressed, or remain here and help forge a new understanding between our species. As Elior considered the offer, he realized he stood at a crossroads not just for himself, but possibly for human-Crystallian relations. And the way Vexorai watched him suggested his decision mattered to the Sovereign on a personal level that diplomatic protocols never accounted for. The 3-hour deadline approached with merciless precision. Elior paced his chamber, the weight of decision pressing down upon him. His neural transmitter had been deactivated, Ambassador Trellis's final attempt to clear his head of alien influence, as she had put it. A soft chime announced a visitor. Not Nishari this time, but Morivan, the Sovereign's chief security overseer. The imposing Crystallian's plates were set in formal arrangement, indicating official business. The human transport prepares for departure, Morivan stated. The Sovereign requests your presence before you decide. Elior followed Morivan through passageways he hadn't seen before, deeper into the vessel than humans had been permitted to go. They arrived at a chamber unlike any he'd encountered, walls lined with vibrating crystalline structures that emitted subtle tones, creating a symphony of harmonic resonance. The Kavira Sanctum, Morivan explained. The Chamber of True Voices. At the center stood Sovereign Vexorai, alone and without the ceremonial adornments that usually signified rank. Here the Sovereign seemed different, more vulnerable perhaps. Leave. Us, Vexorai commanded, and Morivan departed with fluid grace. What is this place? Elior asked, his voice unexpectedly amplified and transformed by the chamber's acoustic properties. The most sacred space in Crystallian culture, Vexorai replied. Where we come to hear truth unfiltered by ambition or fear. I bring you here because what I must say cannot be distorted by diplomatic pretense. The Sovereign's plates shifted to a color Elior had never seen before, a deep iridescent purple that seemed to pulse with internal light. Crystallians mate for life, Elior Vesper. Our species forms bonds based not on physical attributes, but on harmonic compatibility, the resonance between voices that creates perfect understanding. Elior felt his pulse quicken as realization dawned. Your interest in my voice is both diplomatic and deeply personal, Vexerai confirmed. When you first spoke, I experienced keveratum, the recognition. In all my centuries, I never expected to find harmonic resonance with a human. You're saying, what exactly? Elior needed to hear it plainly. I am saying that your voice calls to mine in ways I cannot ignore, ways that transcend species, politics, even reason itself. The sovereign moved closer. Your ambassador believes I seek to manipulate you for political advantage. The truth is far more complicated. You're attracted to my voice, Elior said, slowly testing the concept. Crystallians do not experience attraction as humans do. We recognize compatible harmonics, souls that speak in frequencies that complement our own. Your voice contains patterns that match mine perfectly, a mathematical impossibility that nevertheless exists. The implications were staggering. Elior had entered Crystallian space as a minor translator, and somehow became the focus of the most powerful being in the hegemony, not through skill or strategy, but through the accident of his vocal harmonics. What does this mean for the negotiations? For Earth? It means possibility, Vexerai answered. If our species can harmonize on this most fundamental level, perhaps true alliance is possible rather than mere diplomatic arrangement. A notification pulsed at Elior's wrist. 30 minutes remained before the transport's departure. I need to know, Elior said, finding courage he didn't know he possessed. Is this keveratum merely biological for you? Or is there... He struggled to frame the question appropriately. Is there feeling? Vexerai finished for him. Yes, Elior. Vesper. There is what humans might call emotion. Your voice awakens response in me that I have never experienced. When you speak, I see possibilities I never imagined. The confession hung in the air between them, transforming the space from diplomatic complexity to something startlingly intimate. If I stay, Elior said carefully, what would that mean? For me? For relations between our species? It would mean walking a path no human and Crystallian have traveled together. It would mean possibilities neither of our kinds has imagined. Vexerai's 4 eyes fixed on him with intensity that transcended language. But the choice must be yours, freely made. As Elior contemplated his response, he realized he stood at the threshold of something unprecedented, a connection that could redefine the relationship between humanity and the Crystallian hegemony, all because of the unique harmonics of his voice and the sovereign who had fallen for them. The human transport departed without Elior Vesper aboard. Ambassador Trellis sent a final message, a mixture of threats regarding his citizenship status and warnings about alien manipulation. But Elior had made his choice, not for power or diplomatic advantage, but for the possibility of something revolutionary. In the weeks that followed, Elior's presence aboard the Crystallian vessel transformed the negotiations. As word spread through the hegemony about the human Veshtalik, the truth voice who had formed a harmonic bond with their sovereign, attitudes shifted. Where there had been suspicion, curiosity bloomed. Where there had been rigid protocol, flexibility emerged. Earth's diplomatic corps, after initial outrage, recognized the unprecedented opportunity. Elior's position evolved from translator to something new, a harmonic intermediary who could convey not just words but intentions across the species divide. The mining rights agreement, once a contentious bargaining chip, became the foundation for deeper cooperation. With Elior's voice bridging understanding, both sides discovered shared interests they had previously overlooked. Yet amid the diplomatic breakthroughs, it was Elior's personal journey that proved most profound. You are learning our ways quickly, Nishariye observed as she guided Elior through a Crystallian ceremony honoring his new status. His formal robes, designed to accommodate human physiology while incorporating Crystallian symbolic patterns, felt strange, yet oddly right. I still feel caught between worlds, Elior admitted, not fully part of either anymore. That is your greatest strength, Nisharia replied. The space between species is where new possibilities exist. When Sovereign Vexarai entered, the assembled Crystallians lowered their sensory appendages in respect. Elior still found it jarring to be the focus of such attention, the human whose voice had captured their ruler's interest. The ceremony itself was both alien and deeply moving, a ritual, acknowledging Elior's unique status as Kaviratum bonded to the sovereign. Not marriage as humans understood it, but a recognition of harmonic compatibility that transcended conventional relationships. That evening, in the privacy of the observatory where they had first shared truth, Vexarai asked Elior to speak, not to translate, but simply to let his voice fill the space between them. Elior chose to recite an ancient earth poem about stars finding each other across vast distances. As he spoke, the sovereign's plates shifted through colors that reflected emotional depths Elior was only beginning to understand. Your voice changes me, Vexarai confessed when Elior finished. It reveals aspects of existence I never perceived before. How can that be? I'm just one human with an accidental vocal quirk. There are no accidents in harmonic science, the sovereign replied. The mathematical probability of finding perfect resonance across species is infinitesimal. Yet here you are a proof that the universe sometimes creates bridges where logic says none should exist. One of Vexarai's 4 hands extended, offering a small device. This will allow you to hear as Crystallians do, to perceive the harmonics that exist beneath ordinary sound. When Elior placed the device behind his ear, the world transformed. Suddenly he could hear the layers within Vexarai's voice. Mathematical, patterns, emotional resonances, truths beyond words. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrifying all at once. Now you understand what I hear when you speak, Vexarai said softly. And Elior did understand. Finally, completely. His voice wasn't just making sounds that randomly matched Crystallian patterns. There was something deeper happening, a fundamental compatibility that defied scientific explanation. 6 months later, as the newly formalized Human-Crystallian Alliance was announced across both civilizations, Elior stood beside Sovereign Vexarai before representatives of 27 species. No longer just a translator, he had become something unprecedented, a living bridge between worlds. Tell them, Vexarai prompted, in your true voice. Elior stepped forward. No neural transmitter or translation device needed. He had learned to speak Crystallian naturally, his unique vocal harmonics allowing him to convey nuances no technology could match. As he addressed the gathered delegates, his voice carried the unmistakable resonance of Veshtal, truth that transcended language. He spoke of possibilities, of bridges across difference, of finding connection where none seemed possible. And throughout the grand chamber, listening devices registered something remarkable, harmonics that touched the emotional centers of every species present, regardless of biology. Later, alone with Vexarai in their private sanctuary, Elior reflected on the journey that had brought him here. I was just supposed to be invisible, he mused. Just the translator, nothing more. And I was meant to be untouchable, Vexarai replied, plates shifting to the deep violet shade that Elior now recognized as profound affection. The sovereign who stood apart from all others. Instead, we became something new. Something necessary, Vexarai corrected. A harmony that proves difference need not mean distance. As they gazed out at the stars together, Elior realized that his voice, once simply a tool for conveying others' words, had become the most powerful force for unity their civilizations had ever known. He had arrived as just the translator. He remained as the voice that changed worlds, and in the unique resonance between them, human and Crystallian, voice and listener, lay the blueprint for a future where understanding transcended the limitations of species, where harmony could be found in the most unexpected places. All because a human with an unusual voice and an alien ruler with the ability to truly listen had discovered what countless diplomats and technologies had missed. That sometimes, the most profound connections begin with simply being heard.